Idea to clean our waders before we forget to do it.
Yeah, mine are really muddy.
Yeah, because if we go to a different place, we could spread aquatic invasive species.
That could be a bad deal.
Yeah, better do it before we forget.
Let's go clean them right now.
Hi, my name is Clint Sestrich, and I'm a fisheries biologist with the U.S. Forest Service.
And I'm Matt Wilhelm. I'm the Education Director for Invasive Species Action Network here in Livingston, Montana. Today we're going to talk to you about aquatic invasive species, what they are, where they come from, the problems they cause, and most importantly, what we can do to stop their spread. Aquatic invasive species are bad. They're harmful to our water systems and freshwater ecosystems. Also, they're harmful in saltwater too, but we're going to talk mostly about freshwater ones today. Aquatic invasive species come from far away. A lot of our aquatic invasives come from Europe and Asia, and the way that they get over to the United States are in the ballast tanks of large ocean-going ships. These big ocean-going ships move manufactured goods across the ocean between countries for trade. And so what happens is these ships are so huge that they've got these ballast tanks that line the boat. And the ballast tanks will help the ship to be balanced when it sails across the ocean, thousands of miles, sometimes through 20 and 30 foot waves, so that the ship can be safe. When these ships arrive in the United States, a lot of our freshwater invasives are introduced in the Great Lakes, ports like Chicago, Milwaukee, Cleveland, Buffalo, Detroit. So when these ships get to those ports, they dump out the ballast water. That ballast water is what holds the aquatic invasive species. Keep in mind, this ballast water was pumped into the ship, let's say in China, sails across the ocean, gets to Chicago, Illinois, the ballast water is dumped out before they take new trade goods in. Aquatic invasive species can be plants, animals, or microbes. Plants. One of the aquatic plants that we're really worried about, and keep in mind there's more than just one aquatic invasive plant, but one that we're really worried about is Eurasian water milfoil. It's a very aggressive aquatic plant that reproduces rapidly to overtake ponds and lakes and slow-moving rivers. Eurasian water milfoil can be spread by little tiny fragments about as big as my thumb, and those tiny fragments can grab onto your boat, your trailer, your motor, your jet ski, and can be moved from place to place by recreational boaters. Microbes are microscopic. We can't see those with our naked eye. A microbe that we're very concerned with is whirling disease. Whirling disease is a parasite that affects cutthroat trout and rainbow trout in the early part of their life cycle. Thirdly, an animal, zebra and quagga mussels. Zebra and quagga mussels are little tiny clams or bivalves. Now, you might think, what's the big deal about a little tiny clam about as big as your fingernail? Well, these little clams, one of these little tiny clams, one of these little zebra mussels or quagga mussels, can produce tens of thousands of offspring every year. Their populations exponentially explode. And the problem with zebra and quagga mussels is that they're a filter feeder. They take in water and they filter out the nutrient or the food in the water, and what comes out of the mussel is basically clean, pure water. So what they do is that they steal food from all of the native macroinvertebrates that live in that water body.
So once aquatic invasives come to the United States, typically in the ballast water of ships like Matt described, humans, again, are the primary way in which they're spread across the United States. And that's because people unintentionally have moved their boats or watercraft from the Great Lakes to other water bodies in other states, and these aquatic invasive species have hitchhiked are attached to these watercraft. A lot of them, like zebra mussels or things like New Zealand mud snails, they can actually attach to different surfaces and they're very hard to remove. And also, they can survive for extended periods of time out of water, which allows them to survive while a boat is being towed across the United States. And then when that boat goes to a new water body, those critters fall off or they can reproduce, starting a whole new invasion. Now, we're not just worried about aquatic invasives coming into Montana from out of state, we're also worried about spreading aquatic invasives that are already here. So here locally in the Livingston area, we have a few different aquatic invasives. We have New Zealand mud snails from New Zealand in the Yellowstone River. We also have proliferative kidney disease, whirling disease, and in the Hebgen Basin, we have things like curly leaf pondweed. So they are here, and it's important that we prevent the spread of these things from our local water bodies to other uninfested water bodies locally. To do that, we have three very simple things to remember. We need to clean our gear, we need to drain it, and dry it. And those three easy steps will kill almost all aquatic invasive species. So unlike terrestrial weeds that live on dry land, aquatic invasive species, again plants, animals, or microbes, really can't be eradicated or managed through conventional treatments like herbicides typically. That's because they live in the water, and usually we can't drain a lake to treat these things. So that means that we're stuck with the ecological and economic impacts forever. That means that the most important thing we can do is prevent these aquatic critters from being introduced here in the first place. And that means we can really do three basic things to prevent the spread. That's cleaning, draining, and drying our gear. I just got done fishing on the Yellowstone River, and I really want to make sure I clean my waders, at least to some extent, before I leave, just so there's a greater chance that things won't survive or be spread. So here I have my dirty wading boots from the day. These are felt soles, and I'm just gonna rinse them in the water really good to get this residual mud off and sand. I'm gonna scrub the bottoms really good, the sides really good. I'm gonna really work the brush into the felt to get the mud off. You can see where I've scrubbed, we're definitely getting that mud off. So even though you have felt soles, you can clean them. But the next step is definitely making sure these things dry out really well, because there could still be microscopic organisms in this felt that I'm not able to brush off. So you want to make sure that we have drying as well before we go to the next water body. So many states are getting away from the use of felt soles on wading boots because there are these microscopic I'll say holes or voids in the felt that could harbor AIS, that even if we do scrub them with a brush, you could have AIS in the felt. And so a lot of folks are going to the use of rubber bottom boots with trade names like Stream Tread that are easier to clean, that don't have this felt. However, it's not just the bottom of the boot that could potentially harbor aquatic invasive species. There's many nooks and crannies on any type of boot, regardless of the bottom, where AIS could hitchhike. So, around the tongue, where the tongue folds up, in the eyelets of the boot, inside, even in the insole. Some boots have removable insoles. You could have dirt or mud under that insole. So regardless of what type of sole your boot has, you should still make sure that you still clean, drain, and dry your boots. So here I have a pair of stocking foot waders, and stocking foot waders typically have these sleeves called gravel guards. And gravel guards are used to keep gravel from getting inside your wading boot, which covers this stocking foot, to keep holes from being worn in them. And it's good at keeping dirt out of the inside of your boots, but at the same time, these gravel guards can harbor potentially invasive species or mud or dirt. So it's important that we roll them up and wash really good up in these creases. And then also unroll them and clean the outside and make sure that the surface is dry before we go to a new water body fishing. You can also see here that we have a simulated aquatic invasive species that's attached here. It's just felt, but it resembles what could be a zebra mussel or a New Zealand mud snail that could be hitching a ride on your waders. So it doesn't seem like really that much dirt could be transported on a pair of waders. However, there was a Montana State University graduate study back in the early 2000s on the Madison River that actually collected dirt from 25 visitor angler waders. And the amount of dirt collected off of those 25 pairs of waders was enough to fill a jar of this size. So in a sample this size, you could have numerous whirling disease spores or some other aquatic invasive species that you don't even know is present.
All right, well, Clint just talked about the human-caused element in the spread of aquatic invasive species. So now we're going to do a little activity that deals with how watercraft, like this jet ski or any type of like a drift boat or a raft or a pontoon boat or a kayak, any type of a watercraft can spread aquatic invasives. So what we have here is we have two lakes. We'll just call them Lake A and Lake B. And as you can see, both of these lakes are clean. There aren't any invasive species in these lakes. What I'm going to do is I have some dillweed here, and I am going to take this dillweed, which is going to represent a plant, Eurasian water milfoil, like we talked about before. I'm going to take this dill, and I'm going to infect Lake A with Eurasian water milfoil. All right, now, my boat is clean right now. I have a clean boat. If I take my clean boat and I go boating in Lake A, I go boating all day in this very small lake, I could pick up hitchhiking aquatic invasives, this plant, Eurasian milfoil, on my boat. If I don't clean this boat, and if I take this boat to this Lake B, which is clean, I'm going to infect this clean water with invasive species. So I see that there's milfoil on here. I'm going to go to the car wash and I'm going to clean my boat off. So we're at the car wash. We get the water going, and we're going to clean all that milfoil off of our boat that we see clinging and hitchhiking to our boat. Now we have a clean boat. Now we can take this clean boat without risk of spreading aquatic invasives to Lake B, and we can go boating and fishing and have a grand old time, and we don't spread invasive species. Now watch what happens if I don't clean my boat. I'm going back to Lake A. I'm gonna go boating for the day. I'm gonna pick up invasive species. I'm not going to clean my boat, and I'm gonna go to Lake B, and I'm gonna go boating for the day. And now look at Lake B. Lake B now has invasive species in it. This is why it is so important every single time that you finish boating or fishing to clean your watercraft, to drain any bilge water from your watercraft, and then let that dry. And that goes with fishing gear as well. In order to stop the spread of aquatic invasives, please clean, drain, and dry your gear every single time after use. So here we are at the water's edge of the Yellowstone River right here in Livingston, and we've just finished boating for the day. And remember, the three things that you want to do to help stop the spread of aquatic invasives is to clean, drain, and dry your watercraft and your fishing gear every time. Now I just took the boat off the river, let's pretend, and what I always do is I look at the boat and see if there's any hitchhiking or invasives clinging to my boat. And so I look in common places where the boat or the trailers touch the water. Now keep in mind that these invasives can be attached to the boat, the trailer, the tires. If there were a motor on this boat, the motor, the anchor rope, and if there's a bilge compartment as well, if there's any type of standing water in the boat. So I'm going to take a quick look and see what I can find here. Oh look, there's some green aquatic plant that's stuck in the wheel right there from when I backed my trailer down to pull my boat out. Now, it doesn't, any type of plant material that you find on a boat, you want to clean off, even if it's a native plant. Any mud, dirt, plant life, anything, clean it off, because as Clint said earlier, even in the mud, the mud and the dirt can hold several different types of invasive species. Now looking further to the left here, there's a little tiny white sticker right here. That could be a hitchhiking zebra or quagga mussel right there. And then there's another one on the trailer right down here. Okay. And then another one right there. So, you know, I'm gonna get those off of there. I'm gonna clean those off, get those right out, because we don't want to take this trailer, and let's get that plant life too while we're at it. Let's move toward the front a little bit. Oh look, there's another piece of plant life right here. So any type of loose plant life, anything like that, you want to clean off of your boat before you go to a new lake, river, or stream. Keeping in mind that Eurasian water milfoil can start a whole new colony with a piece just this big. This is all it takes, a piece this big, a tiny fragment. So when we clean our boat, we can pick off all of the loose material like I just showed you. But like Clint showed you earlier, he cleaned his boots, his fishing boots, with a little blue brush. Now I'm not going to clean my entire boat with this little blue brush. One of the surefire ways that you can get clinging or hitchhiking invasive species off your boat is to simply go to the car wash, put a couple of dollars of quarters into the machine, put it on rinse, and use the high pressure hose to rinse and clean any debris that's off your boat. Another thing too that might help get off the boat are the veligers, which are the larvae of the zebra and quagga mussels that are very hard to see and very hard to feel with your hand. And if you spray those off with high pressure spray from the car wash hose, then you can do your part in that way as far as cleaning when you're trying to clean a larger watercraft.
So here we have a drift boat, but no matter what type of watercraft you own, there is potential for water to be stored and transported in little hidey holes or nooks and crannies that could allow aquatic invasive species to survive and be spread to a new water body. So it's super important that you become familiar with the watercraft you're using and the places where water could be stored and transported. On motorboats, we have things like live wells, which people put fish in that they catch for the day. We also have transoms and bilges that can harbor water or even water in the motor. So it's really important that we drain all of those areas. And then even in things like, you know, kayaks or canoes, there can be water inside that can be spread from one water body to another with aquatic invasives in it. It's super important to turn those upside down and, you know, sponge out any water that's standing or taken to the car wash. So just be familiar with the type of watercraft that you're using. Here on this drift boat, we have a fair amount of water inside in the bottom that could have aquatic invasive species in it. And so here we're just gonna make sure that we drain this boat through the plugs. So I'm gonna take the plugs out, and motorboats have plugs as well. It's very important to pull those out and then just make sure we drain it at the end of the day. And it's imperative that you do this right after you're done, because if you drain it next to the water body that you're going to fish in next, this draining water could have aquatic invasive species in it that could drain right into that new water body and infest it. So do this right when you're done at the end of the day before you forget. Got it? Yep. Aquatic invasive species are one of the greatest threats to our aquatic ecosystem, our way of life, and our outdoor recreation here in Montana. It's super important for you to do your part to prevent the spread of aquatic invasive species by cleaning, draining, and drying your gear. But just as important is to share this information with your family and friends so that they know how to take the steps to protect their resources as well.
So for Clint Sestrich, I'd like to say thank you very much for joining us today. And my name's Matt Wilhelm, and if you would like to learn more about aquatic invasive species or to find other interesting lessons that we put together at Invasive Species Action Network, please visit stopais.org for more information. Thanks a lot and have a great day.